Welcome to our second episode of EdTech Table Talks, where we dive deeper into educational technology and we discuss best practices as well as tips and other suggestions. Today, I have a very special guest with me. I have Miss Randy Knoll from the Math Department, and she's here to discuss two topics with us today. We're going to go ahead and get started, and the first topic is basically going to be how you can use Canvas to work with your coworkers and lessen the workload.
All right, so this year we've all got a lot on our plates, and it gets a little rough inputting everything into Canvas. It's taking a lot of our time as far as prep, planning, anything like that. If you are working in a team, however, there are a lot of ways to lighten the load, and we do have to learn to kind of push things off and share. We have to learn how to ask for help and share the workload. Now, a lot of people I think have gotten really familiar with using the Commons upload options where somebody takes their work, they put it in the Commons, and now you download it into your course. But that can be a lot of extra steps for a lot of people, and especially tedious when you just want to share one assignment for one day. So there is a different way to go about sharing your work with the three little dots in the upper corner. I feel like a lot of us have started using those a lot to see what options are available on any given assignment. But if you click on those, there is a share option. That is what our pre-AP geometry team has been using heavily in order to share pages, assignments, videos, whatever it may be. We're clicking our little three buttons and there is a share to option, and you can decide exactly who in the Pearland High School team that you want to share stuff with. So you can send it directly to somebody and it'll be sitting in their inbox that they can now download into their computer without them having to go hunt through the Commons. Nobody's having to search anybody's names. Nobody's having to try to figure out, is this the correct file or is it that one? No, it was shared directly with you. One of the things that's really great about this is that we share our new quizzes through there. And once it's been shared with us, we're able to update it on our own side, and it's updating in our coworkers' Canvas as well. If we're working with using, for instance, the item banks, yes. So if we're working with using the item banks, we're able to share the quiz and add stuff from our own banks. One of the ways that we've seen this done in our group, one of the ways that we've done this in our planning team is that, for instance, me and Brittany Doyle, we will split up some of the questions, and she makes absolutely most of the banks, but I will come in and I'll take a couple of questions, and I've made a couple of the banks too, and we'd share the quiz and add our own bank information in there. So that way we can both look at it at the same time. Speaking of those item banks, they can be a great way to save you some time down the road. We actually will create item banks for quizzes. I say we. Brittany creates item banks for our quizzes. Credit where credit is due. Brittany creates item banks for all of our quizzes, adds stuff in, and we actually are able to then recycle those item banks when it comes to time for the tests.
Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about how teachers can make Canvas a little more intuitive for students to navigate.
So, I want to get into the design side of things because you and I both have that. We both love that on the graphic design side of things. But you don't have to have like fancy skills in order to make this more intuitive. One of the things that I have learned in the past 3 years of using Canvas with our SAT prep course is to stop trying to fight the way the kids use the tool. One of the things that I had some issues with in the spring was that students were only going to the to-do list or their calendar in order to see what had to happen. And at first I kept trying to fight it, and I was like, go to your modules, look at things, see what order they go in, read the directions and follow it. Once I realized that all they were doing, that a large number of students, all they were doing was going to the to-do list, I decided, all right, let's make that work in my favor. And so now every time that I have a lesson, it is on a page. Like I embed my videos on pages. Anytime I have a file that I want them to download, it's embedded on a page or in an assignment, because on pages, you can create it as a student to do. All you have to do is scroll down to the very bottom after you've edited the page, and there's a little mark that says student to do, and you can put a due date that they are supposed to look at that page on. So what I do every single week now is we have a directions page for both of my courses, SAT prep and geometry. And I have Monday, I will blank, and then there's a bulleted list of what we're doing, and I link stuff on there. So just as an extra piece for them. It's not necessary because they don't use it as much, but there's a handful of kids who do. But I put the directions page, it's on their to-do list. They have to click. If it's on their to-do list, they're going to click on it. They will click on anything on their to-do list. So I always make sure my directions are on a page, or anything, any additional information I want them to have is on a page or in an assignment. I try to avoid anything that can't go on the to-do list.
So I do have a new little trick for teachers. I don't know how many of you just normally go into the settings of your course and look at the new things that are there. But if you go to settings and then you click on feature options, one of the tabs at the top, um, typically when you go to settings, you look at either course or navigation. But if you go to feature options, there's now something that you can toggle on that is called assignment student enhancements. But to give you an overview of it, it just makes students' assignments a little more intuitive when they're doing them. I've never liked the fact that in Canvas, whenever a student is trying to do an assignment, they click on the assignment, they see your instructions, they read, scroll down the page, read all of the instructions, then they have to scroll back up to the top of the page just to hit the submit assignment button, just to get like the file upload or whatever it is that they're doing to turn the assignment in. I've never really liked that. And now you can control that. You can turn this enhancement on and it just totally changes the game. So as I continue to talk about it, I'm just going to be showing it to you on the screen. At the very beginning, right before you get to the instructions, there's going to be like a progress bar. It's going to tell them when it's due, how many attempts they have, how many times they attempted it. But it's like right there in their face. It'll tell them if it's late, how late it is, all of these different features that you're going to get on here. And as you scroll down, they really don't have to scroll back up to the top to get to that submit button. Everything is just intuitive. As they scroll the page, everything that they need is going to be there. Now, there is one caveat about this. It is in beta. So if you have a parent that's using an observer role in your course, if you turn this on, when they go to see their students' assignments, they won't see the details for that assignment in the web browser. However, they will see it if they log onto the mobile app. So that's just something that Canvas is working on right now. It only works for assignments, but it does not work for any assignment that has an external tool or a cloud assignment, and it does not work yet for discussions or quizzes. But it's just something that you have the option to turn on, especially if you've had a problem with your kids always asking you, where do I go to turn in the assignment? If they forget that they have to scroll back up and go to the submit button. So that's just some things that you can look forward to.
See, what I like about that is that because the submit button is at the top, I know that I have kids who haven't read all of the directions because they just see the submit button and they go, and they haven't read through what file types they're allowed to upload or anything like that. So now if they have to scroll through everything, you scrolled past it.
Mm-hmm.
You scrolled past the information that you were asking me about right now. I am down for anything that makes more sense with the way that a page is laid out. I mean, you've seen the homepage for my Canvas, right?
Yes.
Oh,
and I'll put it on the screen right here.
I love my homepage. I've adjusted over the past year. It looks fancy. It looks super fancy, but that's because my square buttons have hexagons on them and white backgrounds. So it looks extra fancy. But I tried to streamline my homepage just to make sure that my kids have no excuse. They cannot get lost. There's no way. If you look at our SAT prep homepage, there are 3 buttons. One of them says this week's directions, or this week. I think it just says this week. The second one is modules, and the third one is live teacher, which links directly to our teams. So those are the 3 things that they need. They have the directions for the week, and they click on that, and they're going to get a table that shows Monday, I will do this, and a bulleted list of anything that they need. And we have like their agenda for the day. It's complete the warm-up, and it's got a hyperlink to the warm-up. Read this lesson, go through this lesson, or read the paper. So obviously I'm going to be delivering the lesson live, but with SAT prep, there are some asynchronous students because it is an elective. So I will have a video linked there. It'll be a page with a video link or a PDF of whatever the lesson's about. And then underneath it says, this is the discussion. Now, they don't have to go to that page. They could choose just to go to the modules where we have one module at the very top that is for this week and only this week.
So you suggest that the teachers, because I know we have a lot of teachers where their homepage is modules. You suggest that the current week's module is at the top? Because I know right now, just by default, the way a lot of people have them is they still have the very first week of school at the top, and the kids have to scroll all the way down.
You know, the more effort the kids have to put in, the less they're going to do, the less likely they are to use it. So what I do is I keep this week at the very top, and I don't have my modules by week. I have them for geometry. I have them by actual textbook chapter. So for each test, like test 1 was over our first chapter in the textbook, test 2 was over chapters 2 and 3, and so I have those modules down below. Whatever's relevant for this week is going to be in my top module for this week. And it's going to have headers in there that say Monday, I will. And then each item for Monday is listed right up under there. And then Tuesday, I will. And each item's listed under there. At the end of the week, one thing, it is a little bit of work on me, but I don't mind it because I think it makes sense for me for next year and for in the future. At the end of the week, I take any item from that week and I drop it down into the module for their chapter. So right now we're working on chapter 5. At the end of last week, I took everything from my this week module and dropped it into chapter 5. So all of the stuff for chapter 5 is all together still. They don't have to remember, did we start it in this week or did we start it in that week? Doesn't matter. It's chapter 5. It's right there. The only week that you need to be concerned with is the current one. And then that directions page that I do each week with my Monday through Friday agenda, I actually have a second module that I keep right under my this week module. And that module is previous week's directions. So if they are looking through Skyward and they see that there's an item missing from this date, they can go into the previous week's directions and see, okay, here are the directions for that week. And I can click on that if they're not sure how to find it via the chapter modules. Because when I label things in Skyward, I'm going to label it in chapter 4.2 online homework. They could either go down to the module for chapter 4, or they can look at the previous week's directions for that date. It gives them multiple options. It gives me multiple ways to show them how to navigate things. And it's just kind of a nice reminder to myself. I have to remember that these are kids and that they don't necessarily have the organizational skills yet. Your executive functioning skills don't develop fully until you're 25, if they do. Let's be honest. If they do. Mine are still a little sometimes. But having multiple ways that things are organized, we all know we have kids who have different kinds of brains, different kinds of ways of looking at things. So I have it set up so that because everything's on the to-do list, they can use the to-do list. It also auto-populates the calendar. Do they work better if things are organized by chapter? Well, then good, it's in there. If you want to know by week, cool, that's there too because I have my directions for the week. It's not really much extra work on me at all. All of that stuff I already have. It's just where am I going to put it? Where am I going to move this to now instead of leaving it in this week's module? Because one of the things I don't like about leaving it in a weekly module is that I want to use this stuff next year. And it's probably not going to be organized the same. I would rather be able to go in next year and look at my chapter module and just drag and drop what I need into this week and say, okay, well, here's all my content from chapter 1. I'm going to drag this to Monday, this to Tuesday, this to Wednesday for this week, and know that all of my chapters together, because a chapter could last 3 weeks. I don't want them digging through 3 different modules for one chapter. It starts to get really cluttered. And the more clutter there is, the less these kids are going to look at it. I mean, we see their backpacks. We see their backpacks on a daily basis. If it's all cluttered up, they don't know where anything is. They need streamlined. So it's about, like, I had to figure out a system that worked for me. I had to figure out a system that worked not just for me, but it also had to work for my partner teacher because we share our Canvas. We had to find an organization method that worked for both of us and for our 200 plus kids.
So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up episode 2. If you did not watch episode 1, make sure that you do that. Cameron Smith shared a lot of great tips on how teachers and co teachers can work together seamlessly in Canvas. And also, there was a sneak peek to the new collaboration with Canvas and Microsoft Teams that is expected to come out in January or February that is going to make your life totally easier. So, I'd like to thank Randy Knoll for being here with us today, and we will see you in episode 3.